This is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? So, in today's video, we're using this Collins World Atlas to take a look at South America. I've done lots of videos recently on different areas around the world. I've done absolutely loads on Europe, of course. So I thought we'd look today at South America instead. A nice change, and quite nice for all of the subscribers that I have living in this massive continent. There are several concepts of the word, or have. What I'm trying to say is, South America is a continent, but there are some arguments that say that there are fewer continents in the world than we currently say. So the minute we say there's North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and the Antarctica. But there's one vision of this that says that anything that's connected is one continent. So there's another projection that says that the Americas are one continent, and therefore Europe, Asia, and Africa is technically one continent. That's an interesting thought. Okay, let's focus then on South America today. We've got a lot, it's just between the Atlantic Ocean and the massive Pacific Ocean. It's really not far from Antarctica towards the south, and in the north it is connected to North America via this area that we usually call Central America. And the Caribbean, I did a video with the Caribbean recently, is just above it there. Some islands of the Caribbean, such as Trinidad and Tobago, for example, are just literally a couple of miles away from the coast. Okay. Let's have a look then at the countries that constitute South America in this little neat, helpful part of the atlas, and then we're going to look at them in greater detail. So, Brazil. I've got quite a lot of Brazilian subscribers, so oi, tudo bem? And Brazil is the single largest of all the countries in South America. Coincidentally, it has the largest population. And Brazil, for those of you who don't know, the capital being Brasilia, which is just here. Famous places, Rio de Janeiro, just there. Sao Paulo, one of the most popular cities in the world, is there. Brazil, for those of you who don't know, speaks Portuguese and not Spanish, and that's important because apart from these three naughty stop-outs, all of these countries speak at least Spanish as well. Excuse me, not this one. From here down, all speak and have Spanish as the official language, as well as other languages of local tribes. One of those languages, for example, is an official language in Paraguay, where it's spoken by a large amount of the population, as well as Spanish, or as a first language, and Spanish is sometimes the second language. And yes, that's in Paraguay. And the language is Guarani. It's also spoken in this area of Brazil and in other parts of Argentina, Bolivia, etc. Okay, so let's look at the countries for a second. I'll come back to these three because they're a bit tricky. Venezuela, capital of Caracas. Colombia, with the capital of Bogota. Then we've got Ecuador, capital Quito. Peru, capital Lima. Bolivia, capital La Paz, and to an extent Sucre as well. Paraguay, capital Asunción. Chile, capital Santiago. Argentina, capital Buenos Aires. And Uruguay, capital Montevideo. So these three. Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. So you'd imagine French Guiana, Cayenne, the capital, is a French overseas colony. I think it's actually technically France, if I remember correctly, because the overseas colonies are in the way the French do it. I think it's actually classed as France and would use the euro, I believe. Suriname is the same sort of situation but with the Netherlands, so it's Dutch. And then Guyana, I think, is the odd one out. It used to be a British colony, so English is the major language there, so French, Dutch and English are the languages here. Spanish for all of these, and Portuguese for Brazil. So there are different schools of thought, as I hinted towards earlier on, that technically the Americas is all one continent. So for the purpose of this video I'm going to focus on South America, so we're not going to venture in this video into Central America and the Caribbean. Some of the countries of which Trinidad and Tobago, I said, was a couple of miles. We'll see that close up in a second. And a couple of the Dutch islands, which are just here. Curaçao is not far from here, I think, and Aruba. They are so close they could be classed as South American if you wish. Okay. Let's go for a closer look then, shall we? Just skipping to the correct page. Australia, New Zealand, the Americas. It's right at the end. Okay then, so we can see here Colombia and the capital Bogota. Aquí estoy hablando en español. Here, this country is the one that links South America to Central and North America. This is Panama City, and obviously the Panama Canal. And that's the country that connects with the South American continent, starting with Colombia. Ecuador is just here on the coast. It's a little bit smaller in terms of land mass. Guayaquil, I think. Although I have a degree in Spanish and Portuguese, some of the place names in South America are difficult because they're not Spanish. Quito is there. You can see this massive purple, should we call it, patch going down. This is obviously a mountain range. These are the Andes, and they're some of the tallest mountains in the world, and that is the sort of spine, the backbone of South America. Because if you think of this as being the back of South America and this being the front has got a very important river. You may have heard of it. It's called the Amazon. And the Amazon, it's incorrect to say that the Amazon is just in Brazil, although a massive majority of it obviously is. If you track it far enough, it actually continues even into Peru. Let's look at these countries at the top then. So we've got Venezuela here. So we have Guyana, Georgetown, Suriname, Paramaribo, and French Guiana, Cayenne. Now that sort of helps us out a little bit. We can see that countries have their name in larger red script, but French Guiana doesn't, and I think that helps us to understand that that is actually France. You can see this section here, it says claimed by Suriname, so Suriname claims this section, but seems to be currently, according to this, as part of French Guiana. In fact, this kind of area here is a bit messy in terms of borders. So this part too, which is currently part of Guyana, is claimed by Suriname. And then this whole part of Guyana is claimed by Venezuela. So Guyana is only a strip of land here. So the borders in this section are a little bit disputed. Here we can see it says the mouths of the Amazon. So yeah, the massive, second longest river in the world after the Nile in Africa, starting in Egypt, or ending in Egypt, I should say. This is the mouth of the Amazon. And what I was saying earlier on about the islands, we can see Venezuela here, and Maracaibo, Caracas, the capital. But look, just off the coast we've got Aruba, part of the Dutch kingdom. Curaçao, it says Nev underneath, but Netherlands, Aruba, Netherlands. And I think it's Kralendijk. Those three islands are part of the Dutch overseas territories, and they are literally a stone's throw from Venezuela, as is Grenada, which is just there, and Trinidad and Tobago. This is Trinidad. Literally is practically joining. If you think about it, it's so close. Trinidad and Tobago. So that is considered one country, and that's why people say that it could be considered South American. Okay, so we said Ecuador was here, and it's quite a small country compared to its big brothers of Colombia and Venezuela. At one point, these three countries were the same country, and if you look at their flags, you can see why they're very similar. But I want to draw your eye to the Galapagos Islands. Those are the islands with the big head statues on them. They are under the jurisdiction of Ecuador. So we got Isla Santiago, Isla Santa Cruz, Isla San Cristobal, Isla Isabela, Isla Fernandina. They're right on the equator, and funny enough, that's what Ecuador means in Spanish, the equator. Yes, there is a country in the world called Equator. Colombia got its name from Christopher Columbus, and Venezuela is Spanish for Little Venice because of the waterways to represent Venice in Italy. Brazil was named from a type of tree that grew on the coastline when the Portuguese landed, and I think that's where the name came from. Okay, let's not forget massive Peru. Absolutely huge country. Large coastline. Lima is just on the coast itself, that's the capital. The Andes run right through it. So you have to, curiously, cross the Andes to get to the rest of the country here, which is mostly rainforests and does contain some of the Amazon River. So a lot of settlements are on the coast, like Trujillo, Callao, and then it goes down to the border here with Chile, and bordering Peru is Bolivia, another fairly large country actually. All of them are pretty large in South America. So Bolivia has a lot of mountains, and La Paz is right on the top. And Santa Cruz is just there. I often get confused between which of these countries has the two capitals, whether it's Bolivia or Peru. And I always get corrected and I never remember. The story behind it is that one of them is so high in the mountains it's difficult to get to. And so, yeah, Sucre is but there, so it's Bolivia. La Paz and Sucre, which is sort of like the second capital, is a bit easier to reach. To get up to La Paz is very treacherous. And it's a lot easier to reach Sucre, which means sugar in Spanish. La Paz means peace, incidentally. Okay, so Bolivia ends over here, towards the southern tip of Brazil. And then we start Paraguay, we've got Argentina, and we've got Chile. Let's take a closer look at those. So Brazil is massive and you can't really escape talking about it or seeing it because it will practically come into every single shot of South America. So Bolivia was there. Chile we already saw the start of, and Chile is a very thin, long country. I suppose you could say it's the Norway of South America. And its capital is Santiago, just there. So it has a natural border with Argentina, which is also a long country, but much, much wider. Paraguay is here. Don't want to forget about it and move down too much. Paraguay is here. It sits with Asunción, the capital there, right on the border with Argentina. It sits just between Argentina and Brazil. There is this sliver of land here, however, so this is all Argentina, including this bit. So here is the Foz do Iguaçu, the waterfalls of Iguaçu, and basically it's on the sort of cusp of being within Argentina, Paraguay and Brazil. So all three have a sort of access point to it, kind of like Niagara Falls being just on the border between Canada and the States. So depending on where you stand, you could be in one of three different countries. Kind of similar, I suppose, to the four states in America that all have a point that joins together. So Brazil, Sao Paulo is just there. Some really massive. Rio is there, Rio de Janeiro. So some really high populated cities in this particular area. Florianópolis, Porto Alegre. All the beautiful beaches are on this point that you think of when you think of Brazil. And then little Uruguay. So if Chile is the Norway of South America, Uruguay would be the Netherlands, I think. Uruguay, I say that because Uruguay is nowadays a very, I mean, most of the countries are quite liberal. Argentina, for one, is, and Brazil. But Uruguay was the first to legalize cannabis, I think. But to stop the tourism, the way that the Netherlands gets lots of tourism for people to come and use cannabis, you can only buy it if you have proof of address, and your address is within Uruguay. So you can't just travel from Buenos Aires over and buy some weed. So yeah, Uruguay is here, and the capital is Montevideo. This is Rio de la Plata, the river of silver. It is called so because people arrived here and found traces of silver and started silver mining. The name Argentina is Latin for silver. In French, the word argent means silver, and it's also the word they use for money. Argent. So Argentina, the place of silver. And they would be through the river that comes down. The Rio de la Plata, the Silver River, they were able to mine silver. And it is considered to be the widest river in the world, and it is what separates Buenos Aires on one side to Montevideo on the other side, the capital of Argentina, the capital of Uruguay. This is a very, very large estuary. And then we've got Argentina. Buenos Aires. I've heard some butchering of the pronunciation of this place. Buenos Aires, literally good air, or clean air. And Montevideo is probably like, it's a bit of a weird word, the view of the mountain, or something like that, but yeah. So Argentina, pretty big country. Really large coastline. And I want to, as a Welshman, point out to you see if I can find Trelew. There is a Welsh, that place, Trelew, which is Welsh for town of the lion, Tre Llew, is Welsh speaking, and Welsh people came across and landed here in Chubut province and set up a colony, and even today they speak Welsh. So yeah, Argentina is the second Welsh-speaking country in the world after Wales. And this whole massive area here is called Patagonia. Argentina, if it were in Europe, would be absolutely massive. It's huge. So it's the second largest country after Brazil. So Chile follows it all the way down. And then we have this funky border at the bottom. This is an island, the Tierra de Fuego, the land of fire. And it's quite cold down here because, as we saw earlier on, it's very close to Antarctica. And I suppose I better address this before we finish the video. These are the Falkland Islands, and South Georgia is there, and the Sandwich Islands, I believe. So it says here, Islas Malvinas, so the name in Spanish for them, and it's got UK. And then underneath, it's got claimed by Argentina. So there was a war in 1982, the year I was born, Welsh ASMR 82, between the UK and Argentina fighting over these islands, and the current resolution is that they belong to the UK, but they're still claimed by Argentina. And they had a sort of vote in the last couple of years to remain with the UK. They had an opportunity to go to Argentina, which didn't overly shock me, because no one is born here from the UK. They're all people born in the UK, sent over to do geographical studies. It's quite close to Antarctica, for example. Lots of bird species in this area. And yeah, so they're all sort of scientists and whatnot. And it's a very small community, and they're all basically British English. So it didn't shock me that much to consider that they voted to stay British and not Argentinian, but it's a bit of a strange vote. Yeah, so that's the Falkland Islands, which is under current control of the UK, but claimed by Argentina. And you'll see any maps of Argentina produced by Argentinians will have these islands as part of them. Yeah, so they're more disputed territories. Okay. That is the very beautiful South America. If you would like me to go over a particular region in the world, then why don't you drop me a comment now? And while you do that, you can leave a like as well. Thanks to all those who have joined my Patreon recently. Lots of you are coming from this channel in particular, as well as the football channel and others. Mostly from this one though, so massive big thank you for your support. If you want to join them on Patreon, then there's information in the box below. But thank you for all your support in whichever way with a like, just watching to the end, with a comment or on Patreon. Thank you. Okay guys, take care, sleep well, and I'll see you again soon, okay? Bye bye bye.